Wear my beach dress today. We're in here. My house, I wish I was in a beach dress. My house is like a yeah.
What's the wires?
My parents take every year this year we went to my husband went to Sedona and
That's not cheap.
there's like nothing.
You all set? Very. I'm calling Bradley Beach Land Use Board meeting to order. Please rise and pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yes. They switched the flag.
Yes.
The 48-hour notice is required under the Open Public Meetings Act as met, as notice of this meeting was emailed on January 23rd, 2024, and published in the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star, and the Coaster. A copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the Borough office, and a copy has been filed with the Borough Clerk. Mayor Fox is excused this evening. Ms. Hernandez? Here. Ms. Mahoney is excused this evening. Mr. Marco? Present. Chair Mayor?
Here.
Mr. Maynard?
Here.
Mr. Shook?
Here.
Ms. Riley Iordi?
Here.
Ms. Saracine?
Here.
Ms. Burnell? Here. Ms. Boko?
Here.
Mr. Sexsmith is excused this evening, and Ms. Reardon is excused this evening. Also present is Mark Kittrick, Attorney of the Board, Gerald Frieda, our Board Engineer, and Christine Bell, our Board Planner.
Couple things to go over before we start. Please be aware the meeting is recorded for transcription. The public is asked not to interrupt, comment, or in any way disrupt the presentation of the meeting in general. Once the Land Use Board opens an application, the applicant or attorney may make their presentation with witnesses and professionals. The members of the board will ask questions and cross-examine each witness of the applicant as needed. Members of the audience will be able to ask questions of the applicant and witnesses based on the testimony given at the end of each witness's presentation. At this time, no comments, testimony, or evidence from the public will be accepted. The board may call its own witnesses. Once the applicant has concluded the presentation, the board opens the public comment portion of the application. The public is welcome to comment, present evidence, testimony regarding the application. Each person must be sworn in under oath and is limited to 5 minutes. If desired, the applicant may cross-examine you based upon your comments or testimony. One hearing date is needed to complete an application with a carry for future date. No new application will start after 9:30 unless the board and applicant can agree that it concludes in a timely manner, and the board will adjourn at a reasonable hour, and really will witness be called to provide testimony at 10. Thank you.
Okay, there's no new correspondence. Next is the approval and adoption of our meeting minutes from the regular meeting of July 18, 2024.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Maynard?
Yes.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. Brunel?
Yes.
Ms. Bogo?
Yes.
Mr. Shook?
Yes.
And Chair Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. As far as our resolutions, I just want to make a note for the record. Resolution 2024-19 is going to be held over until our September 19th meeting. I received an email from Richard Stone requesting that he be able to review it. He thought that there were some minor revisions that needed to be made, so we will be reissuing that resolution and it'll be memorialized at our next meeting. So the first resolution we have for memorialization is Resolution 2024-18. This is approval of use variance and bulk variances to reconstruct a second principal structure which had been damaged by fire. Dennis and Roberta McDonough, Block 18, Lot 21, 516 Park Place Avenue.
Make a motion for approval.
Mr. Maynard?
Yes.
Mr. Martha?
Yes.
Ms. Brunel?
Yes.
Ms. Boco?
Yes.
Mr. Shook?
Yes.
And Chair Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. The other resolution is Resolution 2024-20, approval of bulk variances to reconstruct a home and accessory garage with apartment. Michelle Blatter and Grant Hirsch, Block 63, Lot 23, 14 3rd Avenue.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Maynard?
Yes.
Mr. Marco?
I'm eligible for this one?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Brunel?
Yes.
Ms. Boco?
Yes.
And Mr. Shook?
Yes.
Thank you. So the first application we have under consideration is really just a request for an extension of time. That was for our old planning board, PB 20/02. This is a request for a third and final one-year extension of time for Coastal Custom Builders, Block 32, lots 17 and 18, 803 and 811 Main Street. The applicant's requesting a third and final one-year extension of time in order to resolve an outstanding issue pertaining to affordable housing as it relates to the project. The affordable housing issue is expected to be resolved shortly and is required in order to obtain resolution compliance and for the applicant to be able to move forward with the project. The applicant is represented by Thomas J. Hirsch, Esquire. And Mr. Shook, you will be recusing yourself from this request.
Yes.
Please.
All right, Mr. Chair. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, Thomas J. Hirsch, representing Coastal Custom Builders. As Ms. Dicker has indicated, application, the letter application is filed. This is our request for the third one-year extension that's permitted under the municipal land use law, the board's discretion. Obviously, the first two have been granted. The first one was more involved with COVID and stuff. But the second one was related to the condition about affordable housing and whether we did have to supply it, we didn't, we had to make a contribution. So there was substantial dialogue and correspondence with Mr. Pichero, myself. Mr. Pichero handles that for the borough, and Ms. Beam, and eventually we came to a solution. So we submitted a proposal to Mr. Pichero, Ms. Beam, and July 26th, Mr. Pichero advised that discussed it with the governing body, and that Jennifer Beam and I have been authorized to draft an ordinance which would permit the new proposed development as we had outlined in our. So finally, we've gotten to that issue because until we resolved that one resolution compliance, we couldn't, of course, move forward with approval and purpose. Right? So actually, because approval goes through as we proposed it, we will in fact come back for another site plan. Although they're drafting an ordinance, so it essentially will be without variances, but it'll be the site plan to effectuate the affordable housing settlement. So this obviously is providing affordable housing units as part of this resolution. But because we don't know, these things have taken so long before in so many months, we wanted to make sure the current approval was still protected under the one-year extension until this is actually ordinance is adopted and we're again maybe back in front of you for that site.
That was my question. Will it come back before us again? 'Cause we don't know what's really going to change. I assume the footprint's going to remain the same. Everything that's presented originally. We just reconfiguring the inside, and which doesn't affect the council's giving full.
So
Yeah, well, this is-
typically what happens, they adopt an ordinance
For him.
that's solely for
That lot.
That lot, meaning John's project.
Mr. Hirsch has represented that they'll be coming back for that variance, but for this evening, they're entitled under the municipal land use law for one more extension.
Yeah, for the
Yep.
original,
Yep.
until we get that one resolved, and then we're home free.
There's no public comment on this. So make a motion to grant extension. Second?
It's 1 year.
1 year.
Who's my second?
1 year from the expiration of the last
Correct.
extension.
Mr. Maynard? I think I thought it was you.
It'll be through September 23rd, 2025.
Seems fun.
Okay, Mr. Maynard?
Yes.
Ms. Saracine?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Riley Iardi?
Yes.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. Brunel?
Yes.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
And Chair Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm usually not this brief.
It's kind of refreshing. It's kind of refreshing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Have a good
It went
night.
well, see, you gotta remember it, gotta remember it.
Thank you.
Good to see you guys.
Okay. So our next and final application under consideration this evening is LUB 23/26. Use and bulk variances for the removal of an existing rear one-story dwelling and construction of a garage with apartment. Brian Downey, Block 60, Lot 3, 619 Fourth Avenue. Applicants proposing to remove the existing one-story dwelling at the rear of the existing 2.5-story dwelling, as well as the construction of a new detached garage with apartment. The applicants represented by Glenn Williams, Esquire. Ms. Saracine is recusing herself from this application, due to her, relationship with the applicant. And
She's leaving, she's going.
She's leaving. Good night. And the mayor and Ms. Mahoney are not here this evening, but they will not be able to participate because this involves a use variance.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
For ease. So good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and board professionals. My name is Glenn Williams. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Brian Downey on application LUB 2326. Property involved is Lot 3 in Block 60, commonly known as 619 Fourth Avenue in Bradley Beach. The application this evening, the applicant is seeking your approval, including the required variance relief, as described in the application filed October 10th, 2023, and outlined in your board professionals review letter of May 10th, 2024, simply to remove and rebuild the rear cottage of the garage apartment. The public notice requirements have been satisfied, and I confirm today that real estate taxes have been paid. And so I have 3 witnesses here with me this evening. We have Courtney Wallison, Seawall Architecture, who's the project architect. We have Gary Dean, who is a professional engineer, professional planner. Dolan and Dean, consultant engineers. He's here in that capacity. We have Brian Downey, who's the applicant, who really doesn't intend to provide any direct testimony, but is here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So why don't we have the 3 of them just come up and swear their men along, Mr. Frida and Ms. Bell. Mr. Downey also, just in case. Invariably, you'll.
There'll be questions.
Yeah.
There will be.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth tonight proceeding?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'd like to proceed, call our first witness.
Please.
Courtney.
How do you spell your last name?
Wallison, W-A-L-L-E-S-T-O-N.
Okay, so Ms. Walston, your affiliation with this application is as the project architect, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It is also my primary residence.
As well?
Yes,
Okay.
so it's two more.
And so I don't know if you testified before this board before, but we intend to offer her as a licensed architect. So if you'd like, you could please share your
Yes.
educational and professional background and licensing.
And I have presented it to the board before previously, so.
I see you're ignoring it, so we,
Yes, this was the, she had,
28 Main.
yeah, on Main Street, it was the church, and they converted it to a single family.
right.
Okay, so she'll be
Yeah.
accepted? Great.
Thanks.
Okay. So Courtney, I'm gonna turn it over to you to
Great,
describe the project.
Thanks so much, and thanks for hearing us tonight. So this proposal, like I mentioned, is also my house, and Brian and I are partners in life, and we run the architecture firm here on Main Street across from Dick's. So our house, there's an existing two-bedroom rear cottage that's, it does not meet the setbacks on both sides. We do want to tear it down and shrink the footprint to meet the setbacks, but build a first-story garage and then a one-bedroom apartment in the second. So the whole, square footage is contracting, but obviously gaining in volume. We're adding an outdoor shower, there will be an HVAC condenser. We also have to chop up some of the concrete that's in our backyard to meet the impervious soil coverage. Can I advance the slides? Is that
Look,
okay?
and you want A3?
Yeah, just to give a little bit of color on the existing conditions of the house.
Who has the?
Yeah, the color slides, I didn't see.
There it is, A3.
Well, it's not in color.
It's not in color.
Right.
Was it on, is it on the website in color?
I can resend it
Yeah.
right now, if it's easier.
that's okay. I think we can.
I mean, you get the idea, it's very, thank you, all right, it's right here. The building is in severe disrepair, and so rather than trying to reconstruct it in its current form, we want to rebuild it entirely. And the new building, as I said, gets smaller, if you go to A100, please. So we have the A100. Keep going.
Yeah, I know. Didn't see one of
I can just describe it. So that's the demolition plan, the existing condition. And here's the
There it is.
A100, thank you. So the first floor will have access by the stairwell to the apartment above, and the garage is the open garage. There's the shower and the condenser on the north side of this new building, and that's our rear guard as it will be. There's more concrete in it as it stands now. And the second floor of this new building will be a one-bedroom apartment, washer, dryer, bathroom, small kitchen, eating and kitchen, living, dining, all in one space. And we have a couple, skylights on the roof. We tried to minimize the number of windows on that side because it's very noisy with the garbage pickup and recycling and everything on the alley. The exterior will be hardy board plank and then a little bit of an Ife siding, just to complicate things visually. That's about it.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Just staring right at us.
Yeah,
How do you get two cars in that garage when you have in the front?
sorry?
How do you get two cars, you're representing two cars in the garage, that you have in the front?
We certainly do. So can we go back to the survey?
You have a driveway?
Yeah, we do, off the alley now. Yeah, so
that property belong to you or the neighbor?
It's ours.
They have a 10-foot wide easement, it's not an easement, I'm sorry, a 10-foot wide piece of property that goes out to the lane.
Yeah, could you zoom, thank you. So there's
Can we
the,
make that turn?
it's a funny
No.
little lot.
Yeah, so.
We're gonna, if we
Okay,
do all
okay.
that, I
I mean-
mentioned before the meeting to the attorney, right now, from an engineering standpoint, you can't make the turn to put 2 cars in that garage.
Well,
So, they do have a 10-foot wide driveway, right, that takes you back to their property. It's behind the lot, next to them to their west. But the building would have to be moved forward on the property by at least another 12, 15 feet to be able to get cars to turn and get into that garage. And that's something that, they could do that without any additional variances that I could tell, but the lot converges, it's not a rectangle.
right, I see.
So if it gets moved forward, there may be the need for a side yard setback because of the configuration of the lot. But it would be minimal, it would be something like 6 inches or something like that. Right now, they don't need side yard for where they are.
But they need the variance.
But they need you just can't put cars in there. It makes no sense to build a garage when you can't put cars in there.
So within that said, the other variance is the big one that's staring us all in the face.
Well, they have to have a variance for a garage apartment because their lot is undersized. That's why they're here.
And because that small portion of their lot is in the GB zone.
So there's these issues we intend to address with our professional planner and our professional engineer, Mr. Gary. And so we can, Courtney can answer, and she can answer, and then you can ask them again, because our professional engineer planner is prepared.
That's fine.
to testify to this issue
So do
specifically.
you understand what's up, I think, as Kelly has brought up, and Harry's mind, there's a 4,500 square foot property.
Right.
Town orders require 7,500 square feet for a garage apartment.
Well, it used to require 5,000.
This is 5,000.
Right, but you're not even
Right,
at 5,000.
we're right, yeah, so
But
the
it is-
day after the application was filed, the ordinance was introduced to include.
Regardless, it's 7,500 square feet.
Yeah, that's the first variance that we're seeking is because of the undersized
So they
lot.
really should- Please, make your case.
So just go over to where the driveway is.
Sure, if you could just turn around, do you see that, survey right there?
It's right here.
So that,
Along
there's
the back
that, the public alley is right there.
Oh, so it's off of the alley.
Yeah, it's right there.
It's the lot.
And as Christine stated, this piece is partially in the commercial zone.
Sherry, what would you say the percent, I'm just curious,
It's the
just
least.
the percentage, I mean, it's the least of the issue, but I would just be curious, what is the percentage of that portion that's in the GB versus an R1?
Oh, it's
So the-
minimal.
Like 10%, 2%?
Even less than 10%.
Got it, I was just kind of,
It is probably because of the frontage here of the lot.
yeah.
Yeah, this whole lot is all in residential, and this one little piece.
You're not on the alley, right? You're not.
No, there's a house.
It's the house,
Next to
Yeah,
that.
we're one in.
621?
621 is on the alley and we're.
Is on the alley.
Just curious, do they have a driveway or is it?
They do not. They have, this is a parking area that I believe is utilized by 621, because it signs up all over the place,
So
says
that's
you can't
not
park
our
there.
property. Okay.
Is that their property, the next door neighbors?
Yes.
Okay, they just have it, because I drove past this, there's asphalt.
That's all, they just park their car.
But they park their cars there.
Right, and then these guys have a paved driveway next to it, but you really can't maybe tell when you're riding by.
Right.
what
Could
it
the
is
next door
there.
neighbors actually fence in that asphalt part, and then is it their property to fence in if they wanted to?
They could,
Oh, yeah.
they could.
Yeah.
Because the one on Third Ave, right past the house, what is it, 620 on Third Avenue, right past the fence that goes.
Yep.
Pretty fine.
Okay.
Please. Any other, well, first, any questions from the public on Mr. Walls? Seeing none.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Mr. Dean?
Good evening. For the record, Gary Dean, D-E-A-N. Professional address is 54 Olin Street in Ocean Grove, New Jersey. By way of qualifications, I'm a graduate of Lehigh University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering. I've been practicing traffic engineering and municipal planning for the past roughly 40 years. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a licensed professional planner in New Jersey, and both licenses are current and in good standing. I've served as the municipal traffic engineer for Asbury Park in the review of land use applications, and also currently in Wall Township. But I've been qualified before roughly 400 different planning and zoning boards throughout the state. But to the best of my recollection, this is my first appearance in front of you.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you. And as you've heard described by the applicant, the property has some unusual configuration, and if I could, I'd like to show you, it's nothing more than an exhibit from your zoning map as well as your land use plan. So I've just created it for ease and understanding what I will ultimately describe as a hardship associated with the property. If I can approach the
We
dais.
can mark this applicant A1.
Sure.
Give one for,
And I may not have enough, but what thank you. What I've prepared is from your master plan, the colored component, oh, thank you for doing that. The colored component of this exhibit is the land use plan from your master plan, and in yellow are residential properties. What I've also done,
What do we reference this? A1?
A1.
A1 is?
A1.
Yeah, but
What are we
is it?
calling it?
It is a
I'll call it a zoning map.
Sorry,
colorized excerpt of your zoning map.
The yellow represents residentially used properties. Red is in the GB principally district fronting on Main Street. In a heavy black line, you'll see, well, it's not labeled, that is the zoning line. That is the boundary between the R1 district to the east and the GB zone to the west. Curiously, that zone has never been reconciled to encapsulate residential properties. And this particular property, which I've labeled as PQ, has, as you've seen on the exhibit, this tail, this little strip, which is the driveway in question, that extends into the GB zone. There is no proposed change in use of that strip. It is currently used for vehicular access and parking. That use will continue to remain. But we are here before you, should you feel that the removal of the two-bedroom apartment that is on the south side of the lot and replacement with the proposed garage apartment, while that's permitted in the R1 zone, I'll say the motor vehicle activity associated with accessing the garage is not, I'll say, expressly permitted in the GB zone. However, your GB zone does permit residential uses on second and third floors as primary uses or principal uses, and as a conditional use also permits townhouses. So the concept of having some residential use in the zone, I would say, is not that significant a deviation from your zoning ordinance. You know, for example, putting a commercial use in a residential zone, sure, that's a use variance. But this activity occurs today. Arguably, we are decreasing the intensity of use by getting rid of a two-bedroom apartment, which is not permitted in the zone, with a garage apartment. So it is improved, it is a proposal to improve the lot that I would submit is consistent with the R1 zoning. I have a second exhibit. I don't think it adds much clarity, but I've I will introduce it.
The A2, which is what, Gary?
It is an excerpt from the applicant's site plan. And all I've done is, and again, it's not engineered with any element of precision, but I've now taken A1 and super enlarged it to show the property in question and that zone boundary. So to the right of the red line is R1, to the left of the red line is GB. And you'll see it splits the property. This is a hardship that runs with the parcel irrespective of the use. As we've indicated, this proposal seeks to eliminate a pre-existing non-conforming use and in its place, again, make a one-bedroom garage apartment. Associated with that will be improvements to the property that also decrease the impervious coverage. In your professional's review, it indicates that the existing impervious coverage is now at 72%, and that will be reduced to 60%. In addition, the building coverage will also be decreased from 35% to 32.4%. So even though it's a pre-existing undersized lot, we are certainly, this application moves it closer to conformance with your zone plan and zoning ordinance. And in my opinion, as a professional planner, that promotes general welfare and constitutes one of the special reasons that is required in the grant of a use variance, even though the only use in question we're describing is a 50-foot piece of asphalt that will continue to remain and has been and is presently used for residential uses. We're also improving stormwater runoff with the decrease in impervious coverage. I do understand and share the concerns about the narrowness of the driveway and ability to get a motor vehicle into the garage. If we were to pull out an ordinance and say I was designing a shopping center or looking at the residential site improvement standards, to be able to pull smoothly into a parking space requires a 24-foot aisle. We don't have it. However, this is not a publicly accessible structure. It'll be used by the owners who are the applicant. They're architects. They've designed this to meet their needs to access the garage. And I did identify that in my initial vetting of the application. It means couple of point turn to get in and out. It can't be done in a single movement. The expectation is it will be a low volume use. Again, it's not commercial parking. But candidly, their headache to deal with. It also means they don't have to store a car in it. Your garage requires your ordinance requires a garage apartment for the storage of motor vehicles. It doesn't specify automobiles, so things like jet skis or anything that has to be registered with motor vehicles, golf carts, low-speed vehicles, all have much greater maneuverability, and that, in my opinion, meets the appropriate test so that it will be used to store a motor vehicle, and your ordinance describes private garages as storing vehicles. So we understand the applicant is acutely aware of, I'll say, the constraint of that limited driveway width. It can't be widened, it can't be improved, but it will adequately serve, and I've consulted with them on that. I can't disagree, it doesn't meet, as I said, the standard that comes out of the book.
In your professional opinion as a traffic engineer, could you explain how someone would get in the garage, what that multi-point turn would look like a little bit?
There's two ways to do it. One, you could back in the driveway and back into the garage. That makes the turn easier because the car pivots better, moving backwards, turning rearwards. However, if someone were to pull in traveling eastbound, they would angle their vehicle as they start to pull up to the garage, and then back up and pull forward and back up. If anyone ever watched Austin Powers, it took 5 million turns to turn the golf cart it can be done.
How would you get out?
Same way, you just back out again to the right. One of the things we discussed with the applicant, it's not featured on the plan, is to provide, I call it a back out key, which is a little extra bit of blacktop, 3 to 4 feet, whatever fits between the southeast corner of the building and the property line. That gives a little extra blacktop for that, to back further out before pulling forward.
So let me ask you another question. If the whole proposed structure was just pulled forward at least 6, 7, 8 feet, wouldn't it make a world of difference?
It does two things. One, it increases impervious coverage where it's a decrease now, and it's going to remain blacktop. Would it be more maneuverable? It would be. So it diminishes the gap in the space between the primary structure and the garage apartment, and it compromises, what little yard there is.
Understood, and I see that as an issue. But, they're not gonna own the property forever. Somebody else is gonna buy the property someday. They may not be as good drivers as these people are.
They might have a much larger car.
I just can't recommend to the board enough that for this to be approved, that garage needs to be pushed forward. It's gotta be able to have it so that the average driver can pull it to the driveway and use the garage. Also, if there's a car in the garage, there's no way you're gonna be able to get a second car in there as it stands right now. It won't happen. So I think it's in your best interest to move that building forward as many feet as maybe your engineer thinks. He is a traffic engineer. I would think at least 6, 7, 8 feet minimum, so that the car can make the turn. And still probably have to do a 2-point turn to get in, at least the second one. They have 2 structures, which means our ordinance says they need 4 on-site parking spaces. They have that with the 2-car garage, but they can't get 2 cars in the garage and they don't meet that, so they're gonna need a variance for that.
Isn't the alley a one-way?
The alley's a one-way.
Yes.
But that really isn't the issue. The issue is once you're on the driveway, accessing the garage. I really don't see any other way to do it. And I know you want to hold on to that backyard because you want a lot of space, but.
The only other functional way that I could see is that, and I'll refer the board, and if you have exhibit A101, that shows, and I'm looking at the left-hand side of that plan sheet. It shows the 2 cars parked in the garage.
I do have, hold on one second.
You're getting kind of hung up on the driveway issue and parking, it still doesn't address the real issue. And the real issue is garage apartment on 4,500 square foot property, 2 stories, and the whole thing, it's totally against our ordinance.
Well, what's there today is worse.
No, well, that's in your opinion, I was gonna ask a question, what is the square footage of the building that's there?
That I can't answer.
Well, that'd be a critical thing to know.
The square footage that, the existing building
Yes.
is bigger than.
I understand it, how much?
I'm sure you know,
It's on the zoning page, C100.
but the
I'm
proposed building
asking
is
you.
small.
And so if I may.
Why don't you come forward? Why don't you come forward? Why don't you pick the other?
Okay, so the existing rear cottage is,
You're more important than I am.
it's 642 square feet, and now it's being reduced to
So we're
535.
talking kind of minimum.
Yeah.
Wait,
No.
535?
Correct.
This says 560. This A2. Am I not reading properly?
That might be because of the condenser and shower. But the actual bed, the garage in 1 bedroom is 535 structure.
And right now, you're saying the existing structure is
642,
640,
so,
about a little over 100 square feet.
correct,
What is the square footage of your garage?
the same. Yes.
Putting the stairs in the.
Yeah, there's stairs internally, right, and so you could cantilever the second floor and scoop one of the cars forward, but, you know, it also could be a little bit of both, you know.
There's also another comment you had made also too regarding planning, a two-bedroom, not going to be reduced to a one-bedroom. If this application does not go forward, the applicant still has that piece of property, still has that building. If they want a one-bedroom, they can convert the inside all they want, and they can put lipstick on this building to make it look prettier. We can't force them to take it down, but they can't expand it, can't change it. But they can change the internal, and they can change the siding.
Cosmetics.
They can do the hardy board on it, they can make a real pretty one-bedroom, even though it's not legal still. But as soon as you change its footprint, and now you're gonna expand upon it, this is a re-dummy, Frank. This is a
Well,
wicked re-
you just said expansion, we're contracting, and two things happen. One,
Well, it's gonna be semantics, you're changing it by 100 square feet, but you're also going up.
correct.
So let's call it what it is. It's a two-story garage apartment on a lot that doesn't support it. It's not legal. And the prior zoning of 5,000 square feet or current zoning is 7,500 square feet. So either way, it doesn't go forward.
Understood, but as a planner, I'm
You do your job.
obligated to
You do your job.
reconcile
I know.
where we have a pre-existing non-conforming condition that also has, and I didn't explain, because there is no garage on the property, that means, we'll say for discussion purposes, 4 vehicles now all need to park on borough streets. And knowing that parking is a sensitive issue, an opportunity to get 2 of those vehicles inside has some minor, but nonetheless positive benefit.
What's happening right now?
In terms, I'm sorry?
What's happening right now with the park? Where are the 4 cars, theoretical 4 cars, where are they going right now?
On street.
Technically, they could use the driveway for 2 cars,
Okay.
right? So from our look at this, they do have 2 on-site parking spaces,
So they need 2 more.
but they need 2.
And
Well, it's-
I know you do your job, and I appreciate
No,
it.
and I understand the sensitivity, I always look at it and say, you have a pre-existing non-conforming use in terms of 2 principal structures on the
Right.
same lot. So that is a zoning violation, although grandfathered or protected. And secondarily, you have a two-bedroom apartment on that property, which is also not permitted.
But if you're trying to lessen intensity, you could theoretically take it down to 1 bedroom, make it a nice, 100 square foot bigger than what you're proposing, yes. But you could clean that up, and we can't do a thing about it. And it's because, again, we're stuck with this use this term a lot, legacy zoning that Bradley Beach, we're stuck with, and here we are.
And that's where, again, my role as the planner is to say, in my professional opinion, you have a superior zoning alternative in front of you with this proposal than leaving it the way it is, notwithstanding those violations.
In your opinion, we're talking somewhat minimum size footprint change.
Understood.
Reducing it, and that's laudable. But what's not is trying to take a 4,500 square foot lot and putting a 2-story building on that, a garage apartment in a small lot like this. We fight this every week or every month. We see this. And we didn't change the law, we didn't change the rules to go to 7,500, that was the town council's wisdom. So, it went the other direction, not small.
Understood. It's just in this unique circumstance, and every application needs to be considered on its own merits.
Correct.
This applicant is not seeking to put a 2-bedroom apartment on that property, notwithstanding it's there, and collectively as not a governing body, but a decision maker, getting something that meets your zoning plan or is closer to your zoning plan, I always think is better. And I understand that's
What's
just
better
my
is getting rid of
opinion.
it all.
Well, and
Make
again,
it
that-
conform, make it conform, but that's the ideal always, and everything else beyond that is a compromise. So,
Understood.
there we go.
And the compromise in this instance is we're making it better. And I hear what you're saying. I don't know how to articulate
No, you've done a good job.
that any better.
You've done a lot of-
And we can certainly consult with the applicant in terms of if the garage shifts northward, does that cure your collectively concern? I'm not addressing just you, in terms of the relief that we're seeking. In other words, let's say I shoved it 10 feet forward and I can pull the car in one sweep. Does that get you where you want to be?
Not at all.
I can tell, that's, you've heard two, now you hear two people, you can read between the lines. That moving it, what's it gonna, what still doesn't address the overriding
I
issue.
mean, honestly, if this was 6 months ago or 8 months ago, we were still at like a 5,000 square foot lot coverage, and this was at 4,500, I think it would be more palatable to listen to it and figure out what to do with the cars and how to get them in and make it aesthetically more pleasing. But you're now almost 40% under the threshold of having a garage apartment. Like, that's a huge increment, and I think that's a big thing for us to take on, to grant that, regardless if you can get a Mini, a Fiat, a golf cart, or a jet ski in there. It doesn't matter. It's, unfortunately, your council passed a ordinance, meaning you, I know you don't live here, but you guys passed for a 7,500 square foot lot to have garage apartments, and that puts us in the position, or at least myself, to say, no.
And that's a condition that's endemic to the property. Obviously, they didn't create it.
We know.
And it
See, this
When we went
constrains it.
from 5,000 to 7,500 square feet, we were already approximately 70% non-conforming. With that new rule, we're now over close to the high 80s of non-conforming. So you guys are not the only ones who have this issue. It's other people who have come in that are asking for that. And if this was, 7,200 square feet, I think it would be a potential conversation. But 4,500 is, excuse me, if you can't keep yourself contained, I would ask you to leave.
Is that Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, I was.
Mr. Cohen, and I was back at my board for,
Please.
she perceives,
I feel
Fine,
threatened and I
please.
feel harassed up here, so I
Please.
would appreciate if you could take yourself outside or behave like an adult.
please keep.
Don't be shocked.
Please, don't ask.
So excuse me, I apologize for taking time away from you.
I understand what has changed, and as I've said, we have what's there today, and I imagine many residents in the community want more.
Yeah.
This is an applicant that, interestingly, wants less, marginally, but they want less. Less building area, less impervious coverage, and one less bedroom. Again, to distinguish it from probably 98% of what you normally hear, I think this one rests on its own merits, but we obviously have to huddle up and, if at all possible. Glenn, I don't know what else I can talk about.
I appreciate it, but you've heard the board, and I need to open this up to the public, for public questions of you also right now.
Understood.
Please, any questions? Stone, please.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 3rd Avenue. Mr. Dean, would you perceive the addition of the 2 parking spaces to be a positive benefit to this application in a town that has a parking issue?
I would, yes.
Now, I noticed that the ordinance does allow a distance from the principal dwelling of 20 feet. So according to my calculations, that gives you approximately 28.29 feet to work with to make that garage more functional. Is that something that would be considered?
This is not my application. I'm
Okay.
merely testifying and sharing my opinion based on the plan that has been filed. The hypothetical what-ifs I haven't evaluated that.
Okay, and
As
then-
I've indicated, moving the garage closer to the principal structure, has some compromises to it. And it's a balancing of whether being able to pull a car in one easy turn outweighs impervious coverage and more landscaping and better functionality of those two structures. But we would need to evaluate that as the applicant.
Function would be the best, would it not?
Well, depends on function. In other words, having a nice backyard where one can, live and enjoy quality of life, as opposed to having an easier move into the garage.
As opposed to having a conforming number of parking spaces?
Well, this application won't have a conforming number. We were providing 2 as 0 exists today. So,
I heard the engineer stated previous that you could park 2 cars in the driveway, so apparently there's 2 today, is there not?
I'll say there's a driveway, they're a tandem arrangement, so if someone pulls all the way to the existing structure, it then blocks the car behind them. So it's just a strip of asphalt. I wouldn't characterize it as a driveway today.
And this property as it exists could be renovated, could it not?
As with any property, yes.
Okay, and there's been no testimony there's anything wrong with the existing structure.
But when you say wrong,
Or any compromises structurally?
oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I believe, the architect might have, I do not know what it is.
Now, 24 feet, would that be the standard for you as a traffic engineer for proper ingress and egress to that garage?
In my opinion, it can be done with less. I wouldn't be here advocating if I didn't think so. It makes it, I'll say, a conventional parking lot like one would find at ShopRite.
So,
Now, I would submit that the vehicles that park along the alley today are backing out in only the width of the alley, which isn't much wider than what we have here. So people are somehow able to do that with all of the head-in parking behind the commercial uses that front Main Street. So they're doing it.
sure, but you do have enough flexibility without triggering a variance for distance between structures. Is that correct?
Well, there would be other variances created, and again, because I've not done a layout, I can't speculate as to what other relief might be.
So we really don't know if an increase in the impervious coverage would still be under the existing impervious.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you, Mr. Dean.
You're welcome.
Close this portion to the public. I saw your client, she wanted to, Walter wanted to
Yes,
say something.
thank you very much. Just with respect to the timing that you were speaking about previously of the application, so, this is our application, and everything paid for it. We probably shouldn't have it, we weren't doing this very long. So I have no one to blame for myself for that, but we did submit it before the ordinance change, so I am very sensitive to that, but I just ask you to just maybe think about that a little bit. I extended the timeframe, so,
After.
thanks.
So is the argument that we're not?
So the argument that
Does not
is being applied at the
apply.
time of application was obviously we were thinking. And we were hoping to not have to debate that issue, but maybe make the issue. So, because it was, that's right, when I looked at the timing of the application as it relates to the introduction of the ordinance, the application was filed before the ordinance was even introduced. And then it was subsequently approved in December of that year. So,
What was the application for?
November 27th. November 27th, 2023.
So before the ordinance was introduced?
no, a year
Uh,
later. So there's a long timeline here. So we submitted this application in October of '22. The ordinance was introduced, literally days after. we
Was submitted to the
application.
zoning officer or to this board?
To the board.
I have November 27th, 2023.
There was
That was the initial submission.
iterations and other things.
And then it was deemed incomplete December 15th, 2023. We got a second submission March 13th, 2024. And then it was deemed complete on May 6th, 2024.
Right. So the original application that I have, that was signed by the applicant,
Mhm.
was like the day before. And so, but we know there was a long history because Courtney just confessed that the cobbler has no shoes. And so they're working on their own account, and it took longer. So that's why we didn't come here presenting time of application, and it was still undersized, but it was 5,000, but less. Now it's 7,500. I think the,
No, Mark's looking at me, it was submitted
So,
prior to the adoption of the ordinance, I'm not arguing that, but
If-
22, I didn't have an application in 2022.
So, according to your records, it was submitted November 27th.
Of 23.
So with that, when was the ordinance adopted?
Was it in December, or did it get kicked over to January?
Was this the one where we had to do the emergency December meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
So then we said in December, we were forced hand to adopt it, so it was a matter of 2 weeks. So essentially.
But we said
we
recommendations,
wanted to
and we
adopt.
said that it was inconsistent.
Correct, we didn't want it
And
adopted.
council did not
Overrode
take
it.
any
So it was
further.
tabled, because I know it didn't officially get adopted until the beginning of 24.
Right.
So we're talking a semantics
But
of 6
did
weeks.
the council grandfather in and
No.
So, I think they're protected by the prior ordinance.
They are. They
They're
are.
protected by the prior ordinance.
By law.
So I guess the point being made is, you still need a variance, but it's not as egregious a variance before it's.
I mean, I still think it is, when you consider we're 8 months past.
Well, no, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
I-
before
I
us,
understand.
variance is.
That's, the standard to apply is, was it 5,000?
Yes.
So it still need a variance, but we're not talking about 75.
Yes, but we have used that 7,500 logic on other things that have come up before this meeting.
Doesn't matter.
But same thing.
It depends
people-
on when they were submitted.
Correct.
Right, but we have had things submitted prior. We've met now.
this,
It's
you-
just getting.
as your council can also confirm, this whole jurisprudence, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've been in your seat, chaired by the planning board of my town, and I was elected official in my town. This is in reaction to municipalities that would quickly move when they didn't like an application to change the zoning ordinances after the application was submitted. So there was a body of lawsuits and case law, et cetera, that evolved to what they call the application rules. So the rules that exist when your application is submitted are the rules that apply, even if it changes after.
May I ask a question? Sure. This is a major twist. If we were watching the movie, this would be a major surprise. Why wasn't this introduced or talked about right from the get-go? As this is actually an overriding issue, because now you're throwing this in here, you're expecting us to double back. I don't agree with Kelly's point of view, 4,500 square feet. I don't agree with that. 5,000 square feet was the limit, 5,000 should be it.
That is the reason why we didn't get to the point, because in either event, it was undersized. All right, so the fact that it was less undersized under the prior rules.
Then we shouldn't even consider it. Based on
Well,
the statement.
according to council, you have to consider it, because that's the rules that apply. Right, 5,000 square feet.
Until Ms. Wallenson brought that up, it was not even going to be the intent. So we weren't going to consider that as a point. So because we've gone to a resolution, a motion, and you may have won, you may have lost. You may have chosen to walk out and reconfigure, and come back again. I don't know what you have done, but this was not going to be discussed until Ms. Wallenson brought it at the very beginning. It's like, oh, by the way. I don't say it.
And what I said was that it was more palatable. I didn't say it was agreeable at 45, which is
I
fine.
think it's agreeable.
I don't think it's agreeable. I said it was more palatable, but not agreeable.
And you're getting more feedback now than most people get during a meeting.
Great. So if we can, I'd like to take a brief recess, talk to our clients, see where we're going.
I'm taking it back. This is a first. I'm not taking it back. All of a sudden, whoops.
Sorry, what?
Like, whoops, forgot to tell you this. By the way, we put this application before the ordinance changed, we didn't know this. And I don't even know what's even germane to this, in a sense, because it never complied even beforehand.
Right.
Well, yeah,
That's
It's
what-
just the standard that
that's
you're
the
going
whole
to
point
apply
of
and
the
make it.
variance.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah,
it's
still
the
doesn't-
standard.
it's
Go,
still-
please, you get
I
five.
wasn't trying to like.
No, I'm not, just, we get.
Okay.
We're adjourned, right?
While we're taking a break.
5-minute break.
I'm not following you guys. That was a mysterious man dropped off a box. I'm like, oh, what
Some people over 5 years.
Oh, yes, I did. I said it's like crapshoot. I have better luck.
So,
Playing craps. No, not special luck, because she's home. She's, she had gotten sick while she was in there, with some kind of upper respiratory. They tested her for COVID, whatever was that. It wasn't that. But it was some kind of, like, inhalation bacterial something or other, because it was infecting her upper respiratory. So they gave her, I want to say they got her on antibiotics for 10 days. They're gonna medicine whatever. She finally got out. She had finished up the cough, so they had her on like Claritin, Singular, nose spray, whatever. She completely lost her voice. It's been weeks. She got sick on Tuesday, July, I want to say 16th. Yeah. So she had to follow up with her regular doctor today, and they sent her for a chest X-ray. So I don't know if she's got pneumonia or what's going on, but they, we needed to get her out of there, and I'm glad we did. She's still kind of weak. Yeah, she had fallen right before we left for vacation, and she was in the hospital for 5 days. Then she got moved to the rehab. So now she's on a walker. And she said she feels more comfortable with the walker.
They test her for that RSV. Because I had that right when actually I had it while we were in Iceland. Never used it in my life.
But when she first got sick in there, she had a fever for like the first couple of days. And then after she finished the round of antibiotics, she has not had a fever, but the only thing she has is this annoying cough, no voice. And she constantly feels like her head is full. And I think it's throwing off, like, because hers, the congestion, I think it's throwing off her equilibrium, which is making me nervous about walking.
But you should ask about
Yeah.
And they have antibiotics. I went to Iceland because I was like, I don't know. And give me everything that I could possibly need in order to keep myself upright. And then I was
Oh, he did have a cat.
And I said,
Yeah.
well, what's
Two Danas, I was like,
and they asked
but
me
I still like freaked out. I would be like chartered. And so, I guess there was like an hour. I don't know.
and maybe my natural
Yeah. It could very well be.
We'll find out.
But did you like shake it? Put your ear up to it?
Is that speaking? Very gently.
That's what the air conditioning is.
and then right over here.
So she had been complaining that it wasn't getting the verticals enough, and she said, oh, she was just like fluctuating, and then things happened. So they moved her to a room, and they put in a brand new air conditioner, so then they moved her back, because somebody needed a private. So she went back in, even though she didn't have the needs, it was a private anyway. And it was, and I did say to her, and I did share, my mom said she saw it delivered in the box, so, but I said to her, maybe something was getting something, recirculated somewhere.
Notes too? Last year, maybe like a teenage woman.
Like, she wasn't one to go, like, other than physical therapy, she didn't really go partake in anything. She was like, what about circulation? She wants to like this, like, Mom. And she's like, well, she was like, how all my faculty about me, like, I don't want to go sit with these people. And I was like, fine. Be antisocial. How long did she stay there? She was there from June. Did she break it? No, did not break anything, but she's 3 4 right there. And the muscle deterioration, all kidneys, this. So they got everything back on track. And, you know, she wasn't one of she has like a little shuffle to her walk and whatever. She doesn't really push up her feet. She needs to eat holding stuff for balance, you know. How old is she? 76. Yeah. She's overweight, she needs a knee, she needs a new back, they're not gonna give her that.
He was 4 years old.
So, ionic parts. Yeah.
I need a new knee too, but I'll tell you what. I'm taking ibuprofen.
She's, well, that's the other thing that I told her, she's like, I'm having a hard time sleeping, when I come home last night, I have to sleep. And I said, what? If they're willing to give you, because I yelled at her when she was in the ER, because they were right in the ER before they could even get her to her room in the hospital. And I was like, and they offered so I was like, Mom, so you just suffered a fall, you got bruises, you got
Family.
I'm like, can you sleep? I can go to the one. So I said, how much you got? I said, I need to go to the doctor.
Sure did.
And we're going to check it or something out with pain. Okay, you can take it. Get a good night's sleep. She's like a zombie.
So yeah, so I had checked
And
them
between that,
today.
over.
I remember every hour.
I gotta keep the cats upstairs and I can't get
Sorry.
there. What do you do? I scare them off to and then when there's like 15 she just gets up and goes over but she was, and it's a shorter distance and it's easier for me to get up out of the bed than my bed. She's having a hard time with bed. I ordered her one of those rubberized mats that you use to track the cat. It's got rubber on both sides to help her get in and out of the bed. Hold on 1 second, let me just take control.
Let's call the meeting back to order, please. We're gonna do a roll call.
Yes, please, hold on 1 second.
Thanks.
Mr. Maynard?
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Riley Averty?
Yes.
Mr. Marco? Present. Ms. Brunel? Here. Ms. Boco? Here. Mr. Shook?
Here.
Chair Mayor?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, we have, you've given us a lot to think about and consider. So we'd ask that we adjourn the meeting this evening. Give us an opportunity to go back, take it under consideration, come back with a redesign. We'll kind of work with your board professionals to see what we can do to further bring it into conformance, to your satisfaction. So I'll ask that we just adjourn the rest of the evening and
So we're a continuation of the application till, how long do you need?
I would schedule for next month.
For September?
Do we have, open on the schedule?
I do have an opening answer. I have 2 applications that were just fairly recently submitted, so, I mean, they would be scheduled short. They're not scheduled yet.
Okay.
I'm waiting on completeness, so.
Okay.
So we'll carry to September 19th.
Oh, it's the 19th? Oh, hold on. Sorry, it's almost It is September 19th.
Well, I will not be here that night,
Okay.
but someone assistant will be here.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
Oh, shucks.
So the date is September.
September 19th, 2024, with no further notice.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Make a motion for adjournment.
I'll second.
Favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, we went to the vet on Friday, had to get an allergy shot.
Taking the last minute.
No, I didn't, I don't.
Hey, I've had rabies shots twice. You're thinking, yes, I have. And you don't ever want to have them. Take my word for it. A rabies shot?
Okay.
Why?
Everyone.
Yeah.